Hey guys, today I'm just going to go over your study guide for expressions and equations. By the end of this video, you should be able to review combining like terms, the distributive property, and solving equations one step, two step, and multi-step, focusing on areas of improvement, not just the things that you're great at. So what I would do is I would go ahead and do the study guide, check your answers against the answer key, and then come back to this video, skipping around to the parts that you needed help with or you didn't understand. So go ahead and take a second if you haven't already, get your study guide out, make sure you've done it, make sure you've checked it with the answer key, and then you should now come back to this video. Okay, so when we're looking at the study guide, the first thing that we looked at was simplifying expressions by combining like terms. So in the first one, we have B's and A's, and then regular numbers. I'm going to underline all of my B's with green. So all of my B's get underlined with green and the sign next to it. So remember, we always change our minus to a plus negative. So keep in mind, this is a negative 23B. For our A's, I'm going to underline those with blue. So I've got a positive A and then 24A. And then the last thing I have is just the number negative 10. So I'm going to underline that with yellow. It doesn't matter what you start with. I'll go ahead and start with A. So we look at what's underlined in blue because the blue goes with blue, just like A's go with A's. I have 24 A's plus one more A. So in total, I have 25 A's. Now I'm going to combine what I have in green, or my B's. So I have negative 17 B's plus a negative 23 B's, or negative 17 minus 23B. Either way, you should have a plus negative 40B, or minus 40B. And then the last thing I have is this negative 10, or minus 10, so I just bring that down. So your final expression should be 25A minus 40B minus 10, or if you wrote it like I did, you can have 25A plus negative 40B plus negative 10. And that's as simple as you can get it. I'm going to use the same strategy with colors for number 2. I'm going to underline all my regular numbers with brown. And then I'm going to underline all of my W's with orange. I'll start by looking at my W's and my orange ones. I have 8.9 minus 11.2, or plus negative 11.2. Find those, that gives me a negative 2.3 W. And then I have in brown, 6.2 and a negative 6.2. Those cancel, so I can cross those out. And I'm left with a minus 12, or a negative 12. Number 3 is just the same thing with fractions. I'm going to combine all these together and end up with 1 7/8 P. So word problem, it says Michelle simplified an expression for the perimeter, which means all the sides added up, of the rectangle below and got 5/6 x plus 35. What's her error? And then let's include the correct expression for perimeter. So Michelle forgot to include the other two sides that are not labeled. So perimeter is this side plus this side plus this side and this side. It's a rectangle, so I know that this side has a 12. And then underneath it here, I have a 5/6 x plus 23. It's kind of hard to see, but it's just the same thing as this one. So this is there on this side and this side. Same with the 12. So after you add all those together, you should end up with 5/3 x plus 70. And then again, her error was that she forgot to add the other two sides. The next thing we learned about in this unit was the distributive property. So we should be able to simplify expressions by expanding with the distributive property. So we're going to look at this here first. I have a negative 8 being distributed to each one of these terms on the inside. Distributing means each one gets one. So this negative 8 gets multiplied by the 3. So negative 8 times 3 is negative 24x. And then negative 8 times negative 7 is a positive 56. Then I just bring down everything else in the expression. So I have 15 and I have an x. So then I'm going to combine like terms. So 56 goes with the 15 and the negative 24x goes with the x. I should be left with negative 23x plus 71. Another example in number 6, I have a negative 4/3 on the outside being distributed to each term on the inside. Negative 4/3 times 15x is negative 20x. And then I have a negative 4/3 times 30. So negative 4/3 times 30 is negative 40. So I have a negative 20x minus 40. Then I have this plus 5 on the outside. The negative 40 and the plus 5 go together because numbers go with numbers. And that turns that into a negative 35. So your final answer is negative 20x minus 35, or plus negative 35. The next one's a little bit harder looking because it's got decimals, but all you're doing is the same thing. This 0.6 is being distributed to each of these terms. I'll go ahead and bring down my negative 12, and then I'm going to simplify by doing 0.6 times 50. 0.6 times 50 gives us 30, so plus 30. It's a 0.6 times negative 11. So 0.6 times negative 11 is negative 6.6x because there's x's attached. Plus, I'm going to bring down this 2.6x. Then I'm going to underline my x's because x's go with x's. I'm going to underline my numbers in red because numbers go with numbers. So that my final expression will be negative 4x, because it's negative 6 plus 2, and then the 0.6 cancels out, plus 18, because negative 12 plus 30 is 18. So I have negative 4x plus 18 as my final answer, and I can't simplify any further because x's don't go adding together with regular numbers. And then number 8 says write an expression for the area of the rectangle in problem 4. So in problem 4, we have a rectangle, which means that the length times the width gives us the area. So 12, I'm just going to show it to you right here, 12 times 5/6x plus 23. And then we can simplify that further because we can distribute that 12 on the outside to each of these terms on the inside. So your final answer would be 10x plus 276. And then if you were really fancy, you would write units squared because it's area. All right, so for number 9, we start getting into solving one-step and two-step linear equations. A linear equation just means if I graphed it, it would be a straight line. It means that it's a regular x with the exponent of 1. That's what linear means. So don't get tripped up by that word. It just means regular, like a normal equation. This one says, what's the correct first step in solving the equation? So let's think about what's being done to x. If you knew what x was, you would divide it by negative 3.5, then you would add 33. So the first thing you should do whenever you're solving the equation is going to be to get rid of that plus 33. You get rid of a plus 33 by subtracting 33. So it should be to subtract 33 from both sides, A. Number 10 says solve the equation. We start by drawing our line on the equals. We know that this is going to be our x side, this is going to be our number side. Start by going in reverse order of PEMDAS. So the last thing being done to the x would be with this 17. So you're going to get rid of a positive 17 by subtracting 17 because we need to move all of our numbers away from the x. So we're going to get rid of that. So we have on the left side negative 1/9 times x. And on the right side, we have 10 minus 17, which is negative 7. So we look at this equation, and we want to get all of our numbers over here on the right. So we need to get rid of a times negative 1/9. You get rid of a times negative 1/9 by dividing by negative 1/9. Since it's divide by negative 1/9, you do keep, change, flip, and you multiply by negative 9. So I'm going to multiply by negative 9. That's just the special rule with fractions. When you divide, you're multiplying by the reciprocal. So keep, change, flip. If you remember that from 7th grade, give yourself a little pat on the back. But your answer is going to end up being x equals 63. You can also check that with a calculator. If you did negative 7 divided by negative 1/9, it'd be the same answer. Number 11 says solve the equation in problem 9. We should already be here because we already subtracted 33 from both sides. So the last step is going to be to undo divide by negative 3.5. The opposite of divide is times. So we're going to multiply by negative 3.5 on both sides of the equation. So whenever you do that, you end up with x equals 10.5. That's your final answer. Let's look at number 12. We always draw a line on the equals. We want to get rid of that plus 13 with a minus 13. So we have on the left side of the equation 4.8x. And on the right side, we can do 1 minus 13. That's negative 12. Now the opposite of times 4.8 is divide by 4.8. We need to get rid of that because that's the x side. We're trying to isolate our variable. So when we do negative 12 divided by 4.8, we end up with our answer x equals 2.5. The next section is solving multi-step equations. Which of the following shows the equation below after it's been simplified? So we're not trying to actually solve this right now. We're just simplifying what we can. So we're just going to look at the right-hand side. We'll combine any like terms. So put our numbers with our numbers and our x's with our x's. So we have negative 2 plus 16, which is 14. So we can automatically cross out b. Then we want to combine our x's. We have we have 9x's plus another x, which is 10x's. So we should end up with a. So I've already set this equation up from number 14 by splitting it into two sides by drawing a line on the equals. I've decided this is my number side on the right because there's only numbers here, and this is my w side because there's w's over here. Now I'm going to combine like terms on the left. So I'm going to do what I can do. So I have a negative 4 and a 17. Numbers go with numbers, so I can actually do that. Negative 4 plus 17, or 17 minus 4 is 13. So I'm going to bring down a positive 13. And then I want to combine what's in green here, the positive 1w and the negative 2/3 w. So 1 minus 2/3 is 1/3. So I have 1/3 of a w left. and that's added to 13. So now that equals 16, and I have a two-step equation to solve. I'm going to start out by getting rid of the positive 13 or the plus 13 with a minus 13. I need to move it because I only want numbers on the right side, and I only want w's on the left, so I need to move it away. If I do something to the left side of the equation, I have to do it to the right. So I'm left with 1/3 w equals 3, because I can actually do 16 minus 3. Now the last step is going to be to divide by 1/3. So I'm going to divide by 1/3. If you do that, you should realize that that's the same thing as multiplying by 3. You should end up with w equals 9. Number 15, again, we'll do on a separate sheet of paper or a separate page because it's a little lengthy. So you should too. Before I go into this, I just want to acknowledge that this is a lot of work here. This is a big problem, and it's really on an algebra level. They're throwing it to you in 8th grade math because they're trying to challenge you. Because if you can do these, you can do any of the other kind of equations, and you will see this in 9th grade math. So I want you to go ahead and just make sure that you are patient with yourself by giving yourself a lot of grace here, but also make sure that you're really trying to get this. I want you to pause the video if I'm going too fast. I want you to rewatch the video, rewatch parts of the video, and make sure that you're asking questions if you don't understand how to do something. So if you've done all that, you should realize that there is a process here. This is a pattern. We have c's that we can combine together on the left side of the equation, and we always want to combine like terms before we solve. So we have a negative 12 c's plus a 7.5 c's. So negative 12 plus 7.5 is negative 4.5. So I have negative 4.5 c's or negative 4.5 c's. I also know that I can combine my numbers because numbers go with numbers. So I have a negative 4 plus a negative 11, which gives me negative 15. So that equals negative 6. Remember, I didn't touch anything on the right side of my equation yet. But now, I'm going to go ahead and try to solve for my c. So this is my c side. I want to get c all by itself. So I'm going to get rid of all these numbers. I'm going to start by getting rid of a minus 15 or a negative 15. I'm going to do that by adding 15 because that's the opposite or the inverse operation. I can do negative 6 plus 15, and that is 9. So on the right side of my equation, I have a 9. And on the left side, I've gotten rid of the 15s, and I'm left with a negative 4.5 times c. So I get rid of a times by dividing. So I'm going to get rid of a times negative 4.5 by dividing by negative 4.5. And I end up with c equals negative 2. Let's go ahead and look down at number 16. It says the perimeter of the rectangle shown is 36 inches. Write and solve an equation to find the value of x. So this is a little tricky. Perimeter, we need to remember, means all the sides added up. So I have this plus this plus this plus this. If this is 12, that means that this is 12. If this is 4x plus negative 6 or minus 6, I have 4x plus negative 6 up top. So my expression for perimeter is going to be all of these added up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and simplify what I can. This is what I got so far. I have 8x because 4x plus 4x is 8x. And then negative 6 and negative 6 combined to cancel out one of the 12s. So I'm only left with one of the 12s. And that equals 36 in total. Since it told me that, my total perimeter was 36. This is my equation. When I solve it, I end up with x equals 3. Number 17 is a matching question. It says match each equation on the left, so all of these, with a simplified version on the right. Doesn't tell you to solve it. And it says not all choices will be used. And if you notice, all these look very similar. So let's make sure that we're watching our signs. This is the distributive property section, and there's a number on the outside of a parentheses. We know we can distribute that negative 2 to each term on the inside here. So that means multiply. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6x's. Negative 2 times negative 10 is plus 20. So I'm going to look over here and find negative 6x plus 20. I see that at E. So E is taken for this one. The next one I'm going to distribute as well. 3 times 2 is 6x, since there's x's, and then 3 times negative 10 is negative 30 or minus 30 equals 15. So I'm going to look at my answer choices, and I see that that matches D. So I'm going to write D here. The next one is 1/5 times each term on the inside. So 1/5 times 30 is 6x, and then 1/5 times negative 10 is negative 2 or minus 2, and that's still going to just equal 15. If you notice, that is B. So I would write B here. And then for the last one, I am going to take this negative 1/5 times each of these terms, and I'm going to end up with negative 6x, and I'm going to end up with a positive 2. So it's the same thing as this one, the signs are just different. So please make sure you watch your signs. If you look over to the right, this is the same thing as A. So you'd write A here, and you can see that the answer choices not being used are C and F. So this is number 18, and I've gone ahead and set up the equation for you. I put my numbers on the right, because there's only numbers here, and my x's are going to end up on the left, since that's where my x's are. I'm going to go ahead and look here, and I'm going to see if there's anything I can do. I can, because there is a number on the outside here being distributed. So I'm going to distribute that 6 to each term on the inside. So 6 times 4 is 24 x's. And I'm going to distribute that 6 to a negative 3. So keep in mind, whenever you see a minus 3, that tells you that it's a plus negative 3 or the same thing as a negative 3. So 6 times negative 3 here is going to be negative 18 or minus 18. So I'm going to write plus negative 18 because I like to write it like that. So then I'm going to bring down this negative 4x. Equals is still on the line, and all equals negative 8. There's still something I can combine on this side. I can put together the x's on the left. So negative 4x's plus 24x's gives me 20x's. So that's all going to equal negative 8. Now I'm going to get rid of this minus 18 first. So I'm going to add 18. Since it's a minus 18 or a negative 18, I'm going to add 18 to get rid of it. So I'm left with 20x's on the left, and I'm left with 10 on the right. So I'm going to divide by 20 as my last step because it's a times 20, and I need to get rid of that. So I am left with x equals 10 divided by 20, or 1/2. Let's go ahead and look at number 19. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my equation here with the numbers on the right and my x's on the left, since that's where they are. I'm going to start by distributing because I can, because this number here is on the outside of parentheses. It makes it easier and simpler for me to look at this problem once I distribute. So I'm going to do negative 3/8 times 1x. So I have negative 3/8 x plus 9, because a negative times a negative is positive, and 3/8 of 24 is 9. Then I'm just going to bring down this plus 1x. So this all equals 19. I didn't touch the right side yet. I'm still looking at the left. I still make sure there's nothing else I can do. There is one more thing I can do. I can add my x's. So I have 1x here. Remember, there's an invisible 1 in front of that x. There's one of them. Plus a negative 3/8 of an x. This is the same thing as 8/8 minus 3/8, or 1 whole minus 3/8, and I have 5/8 of an x plus 9 equaling 19. I'm going to go ahead and take away the 9 here because it's a plus 9, and I need to get rid of all of my numbers from the x side. So when I take away 9 from 19, I'm left with 10 equals 5/8 of x. So I'm going to divide by 5/8 to solve, and I end up with my final answer of x equals 16. Go ahead and look at number 20. This one I want to do a little bit differently. I'm just going to show you my work for this one. So you can go ahead and pause the video now. This is all I'm going to do for this one because it's the same as the other two. You can just pause the video, check to make sure that your work matches it, and then you can go on to the next one. Any questions about why I did anything in that last problem? You can message me, call me, or let me know in class. Let's look at number 21. It says the area of the parallelogram shown is 9 square inches. So the area means length times width. So this times this gave us 9 square inches. Set up and solve an equation to find the value of x. This is my equation because this times this gave us this. Then it says my solution means that I'm going to go ahead and solve this out. One way to solve this out would be to go ahead and divide by 3 right off the bat. So I have 1/9 x plus negative 2 equals 3. Add 2 to both sides, which is 5, and then multiply by 9, which is 45. So if you missed all that, rewatch it again, or let me know that you have a question about how to solve that, and I will do it step by step for you. So for this next section, we should be able to solve equations where there's a variable on both sides. Let's start with 22. So we always start like normal. We draw a line on the equals, and we pick a side for our x's. I'm going to pick the right side because there's more x's over here. On the left side, I'm going to make that my number side. So I just put a little circle around it and make a little note of it just so I can keep track of that as I'm solving the problem. Now I'm going to look at each side and see if there's anything I can do. So I'm going to look on the left side. I can combine some of these because I know that x's go with x's. So I have 7x's plus another x. So I can rewrite this as 8x's plus negative 4 or minus 4. And on the right side, I can do something. I know that negative 1 goes with that positive 7. Numbers go with numbers. So negative 1 plus 7 is the same thing as 6. So I have 13x's plus 6. And then I'm going to solve this equation like normal. So I'm going to get all of my x's over from the left side to the right side. So I need to get rid of this 8x's. So I'm going to get rid of a positive 8x's by subtracting 8x's. So I'm going to do minus 8x to both sides. It's gone from the left now, and I can do 13 minus 8. I know that that's 5. So I have 5x's bring down the plus 6, and keep the negative 4 on the left. Also, now I need to move all of my numbers away from the x side. So now I'm left with only numbers here. I need to get rid of this plus 6 because I'm trying to move my numbers away from my x's. So now I have negative 10 on the left equals 5x. When I divide by 5 on both sides, I know that negative 2 equals x. Number 23. This is a very long problem, so hopefully you did this on a separate sheet of paper. It's also got decimals, so it might look confusing to you, but it's the same process. We pick a side for our x's, we pick a side for our numbers, and we want to look at the equation and see if there's anything I can simplify on each side. I can simplify on this side because I know that negative 3 plus 13 I can do. That gives me 10. So I'm left on this side with negative 0.5x plus 10 equals the 0.3x plus 6.2. There's nothing else I can do, so I'm going to take away these x's from the left side, move them to the right side, since the right side is my x side. I'm going to get rid of a negative 0.5x by adding 0.5x. If I do it to the left side, I have to do it to the right side. That's gone, and now all I'm left with on the left is 10. And on the right side, I have 0.8x now plus 6.2. Now I'm going to take away that 6.2 because I want to get rid of my numbers from the right side and move them to the left. So I can do 10 minus 6.2, which is 3.8. And that equals 0.8x. My last step is going to be to divide. So I'm going to divide by that 0.8. So I end up with x equals 4.75. Let's go ahead and look at number 24. I went ahead and did the first two steps for you. First of all, I drew my line on the equals and decided this would be my x side, this is my number side. Doesn't matter which side you pick, you'll get the same answer. And I went ahead and distributed that 2/3 out to a x and a negative 24. Keep in mind, that's a negative 24. And then I combine like terms in the next step. So 1/3 x's plus 2/3 x's gives me 1 whole x plus negative 16 equals 1/6 x plus negative 6. So I'll pick it up now, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure that my x's go to the left. So I'm going to get rid of them on the right. So I'm going to get rid of this 1/6 of an x. When I take away 1/6 of an x from 1x, remember there's a 1 there, I'm going to do 1 minus 1/6, which is 5/6 of an x, plus negative 16, and then keep that negative 6 on the right. Now I'm going to get rid of a minus 16 by adding 16. So plus 16 to both sides, and I have 5/6 of an x equals 10. Finish solving, I have x equals 12. Let's go ahead and look at this last one. Remember, this is very difficult. This is like an algebra level problem because you have to distribute twice and then solve for a variable when it's on both sides. This is very hard. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you my work for it. And remember, you will not see a question like this on your test. So here's my steps for the first two lines. I'm going to press pause and then press play, just so you can check this line by line. So I did my next step. I combined my terms. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick my x side over here. So I'm going to move my x's. And one more step. Should be pretty obvious now. What number times 21 gives you 7? If it's not, you can divide. Whenever you do, you get 7 over 21, which is the same thing as 1/3. So x equals 1/3. 1/3 of 21 is 7. So that is going to be it right there for solving equations where variables are on both sides. So look at this last section because we're not going to do the 30 on. We're just going to do 26, 27, 28, and 29. So 26 says describe in your own words how you can tell whether an equation has an infinite number of solutions or no solution. Well, if it's an infinite number of solutions, it'll end up with like 5 equals 5 or 3 equals 3 or 0 equals 0, whatever, because it'll be a true statement. And an equation with no solution will end in a false statement, like 5 equals -5 or 2 equals -3 or whatever. So that is how you can tell. Let's go ahead and look at number 27. Let's actually solve it out. So we'll start by drawing our line on the equals. And we want to pick a side for our variables, pick a side for our numbers. I'll do that after I distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify what I can on both sides. I'm going to simplify this side over here by multiplying a 2 to each term on the inside. And then I'll also do the same thing on the right side. So 3 can be distributed to each of these terms. This is what I have so far. Then I'm also going to combine any like terms I have on the left. So on the left side, I have a 10x and a 2x. So I end up with 12x plus -12 equals 12x plus -12. You should realize now these are the same thing. This is the same thing as this. If you kept solving, you would end up with something like -12 equals -12 like this. And when you got there, you would know this is a true statement, so the equation must be x is all real numbers, or x can be infinitely many numbers. So go ahead and write that in as your answer, and that will be it. Let's look at 28. We want to begin by doing what we can do on either side. So we'll distribute if we can. We can on this side. We can distribute that 2 to each term. To get 18x plus negative 12 on the left, and on the right, we can distribute the 6 to each of these terms. Get 18x plus negative 12. And then we can simplify one more thing because we can put our numbers with our numbers. So we can combine the negative 12 plus 2 and end up with negative 10. Now that you're in this line, you can probably tell what kind of solution you're going to have, whether it's one solution, no solution, or all real numbers. Well, let's go ahead and keep solving just to make sure we can figure it out. We want to get x by itself. We want all of our x's on the left side of our equation. So let's get rid of the x's on the right side. We take away a positive 18x by subtracting 18x. So we subtract 18x from both sides, and we have no x's left on either side. So now all we have is negative 12 equals negative 10. This is a false statement. So the answer for this question would be that there is no answer. DNE does not exist. You can write DNE does not exist, or you can write no solution for number 28. And let's look at 29 for the last one. We're going to go ahead and draw our line on the equals. We're going to go ahead and combine like terms if we can. We can because we have two x's over here being combined with another two x's over here. So we're going to go ahead and rewrite this as 8 plus 4x equals 8 plus 4x. This is the same thing as this. So if they are equal already, that means that there is any number you could put in for x to make this true. That means that the solution is actually that there are infinitely many solutions. So you can just write all real numbers. I'm not going to cover number 30, 31, 32, or 33 in this video. So if you have a question about those, please ask me in class. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it to the end of this video, please put what you like better in the comments, expressions or equations. Today, we went over the expressions and equations study guide. So now you should be able to review combining like terms, the distributive property, and solving equations. And hopefully you've been able to focus on your areas of improvement. So hopefully you figured out what you're really good at and what you need to work on before the test. So if you do have any questions, please let me know, and we can work on any of those last minute things before we take our test. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.